Okay, today we're going to talk about ratios. You'll need your toolkit, a pencil, and a highlighter. Okay, I believe this is page 38 in your toolkit. So please follow along, and you're going to highlight what I have underlined. We're talking about equivalent ratios. So let's first talk about what a ratio is. A ratio compares two amounts, and it can be written with words, as a fraction, or with colon notation, but most often we're going to write it as a fraction. So then we have some examples. Our first example is if there's 28 students in math class and 15 of them are girls, we can just simply write that as a fraction, 15 girls out of 28 students. So you want to make sure that you circle that form because we are always going to be writing our ratios as fractions in math class. Okay?
What does it mean when a recipe uses a ratio like 2 eggs for every 3 cups of flour? In this lesson, you will learn to visualize a part-to-part ratio using pictures. A common mistake that students make with ratios is thinking that a ratio describes just one situation. So in our example, we have a pancake recipe, 2 eggs for every 3 cups of flour. A student might look at that and draw 2 eggs and 3 cups of flour and think they're done. But a ratio actually describes a pattern. So that ratio could mean 2 eggs and 3 cups of flour, but it could also mean 4 eggs and 6 cups of flour, or 6 eggs and 9 cups of flour. All of those pictures are examples of that same ratio, 2 eggs for every 3 cups of flour. Let's see why. Okay, here's our definition of a ratio. Ratios show how two or more quantities are related. In this lesson, we're going to look at a type of ratio where both quantities are parts of some bigger total. It's called a part-to-part ratio. So here's our example, our pancake recipe. 2 eggs for every 3 cups of flour. Eggs and flour are both parts of that total pancake recipe, so it's a part-to-part ratio. That phrase, for every, is really a key phrase to tell you that it's a ratio. And what it means is that every time you put 3 cups of flour in your pancake mix, you also have to put 2 eggs. If you put another 3 cups of flour into your pancake mix, another 2 eggs have to go in too. So this ratio could be talking about 2 eggs and 3 cups of flour, or like we see now, 4 eggs and 6 cups of flour. And it keeps going. If you add another 3 cups of flour, you have to add another 2 eggs. So now you're talking about 6 eggs and 9 cups of flour. All of those are the same ratio because ratios describe patterns. Now, there are a bunch of different ways that mathematicians write and talk about ratios. So we could do it like what you've seen so far, 2 eggs for every 3 cups of flour. Or you could say the ratio of eggs to flour is 2 to 3, and you use that word 2. Or 2 to 3 using a colon. Or 2 to 3 using a fraction bar. All of these are different ways of saying the same thing, the same ratio. And notice that in all of these ways of writing it, the 2 comes first because eggs comes first. And then the 3 comes second because flour comes second. In this lesson, you have learned to visualize a part-to-part ratio using pictures.
All right, the two main ingredients in brownies are eggs and oil. So in one recipe, I need 3 eggs and I need 2/3 a cup of oil. It's hard to see, but that's where this is measured to. But say I need to make 5 boxes of brownies. So I can use ratios to help me figure out how many eggs and how much oil I'm going to need to make 5 boxes of brownies. So I need 3 eggs and I need 2/3 a cup. So if I'm going to make 5, I need to multiply this by 5. See if you can figure it out. Pause the video. Alright, so hopefully you did 3 eggs times 5 and got 15 eggs. That was pretty easy. The 2/3 is maybe the tricky part. So you're multiplying 2/3 times 5. So 2/3 times 5 means it's 5/1. So 2 times 5 would give you 10, and then 3 times 1 would give you 3 10/3. When we're baking, we don't really use 10/3 in improper fraction, so we need to change that to a mixed number. 3 goes into 10 3 times, and you have 1 left over, and you keep the same denominator, so it would be 3 1/3 cup of oil and 15 eggs to make 5 boxes of brownies. That's it. For ratios,